Deep within the frozen interior of Gakona, Alaska, 180 towering antennas rise from the landscape. This is the High-Frequency Active Auroral Research Program, or HAARP, a facility spanning 33 acres of isolated bush country. The official narrative, maintained by the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and DARPA, characterizes the site as a scientific research instrument. Its stated purpose is to use 3.6 megawatts of power to study the ionosphere, with the goal of improving military navigation and communication systems. However, this official account is widely disputed. Independent researchers and critics across the globe link HAARP to the engineering of extreme weather and natural disasters, including the catastrophic earthquakes that struck Turkey and Haiti. Investigating these claims requires looking back to the 1980s, to a time when the technology was first conceptualized by a private oil company and an MIT-trained physicist. The origins of the facility are documented in a series of corporate filings and patent applications that predate the military's involvement. During the 1980s, the Atlantic Richfield Oil Company, known as ARCO, faced an economic bottleneck. They held the rights to trillions of cubic feet of natural gas buried under the Alaskan North Slope, but the cost of transporting that energy to the lower 48 states was prohibitive. To solve this, ARCO hired physicist Dr. Bernard Eastland. He proposed consuming the trapped gas on site to generate massive amounts of electricity for a new type of atmospheric transmitter. This diagram shows Eastland's concept, an ionospheric heater that differed from traditional radio towers. While most antennas spread energy outward, Eastland's design focused it into a highly concentrated narrow beam, packing unprecedented power into a single point in the sky. A logistical challenge regarding stranded natural gas became the catalyst for a design capable of manipulating the Earth's atmosphere. On August 11, 1987, Eastland was granted U.S. Patent 4686605, titled A Method and Apparatus for Altering a Region in the Earth's Atmosphere, Ionosphere, and/or Magnetosphere. The patent claims that this technology could create an anti-missile shield by lifting large sections of the atmosphere to intercept incoming rockets. It also outlines a method for the total disruption of global communication networks. Most significantly, the document details a method for weather modification. It describes altering upper atmosphere wind patterns to physically steer the path of the jet stream. Shortly after the patent was issued, the U.S. Navy placed a temporary secrecy order on Eastland's related research. A series of corporate acquisitions followed. ARCO's subsidiary, which held the patents, won the contract to build HAARP and was then purchased by E-Systems, a contractor with established ties to the CIA. Finally, the entire project was absorbed by Raytheon. These acquisitions moved the technology from a public patent file into the classified project portfolio of a major defense contractor. The military's current defense against weather control claims is based on physics. They argue that HAARP's 3.6 megawatts of power is mathematically insufficient to influence the massive energy systems that govern global weather patterns. However, the facility's design allows for a different application. By pulsing the antennas in a specific sequence, the ionosphere acts as a reflector, bouncing extremely low frequency, or ELF, waves back toward the Earth's surface. These reflected waves operate within a specific window, typically between 3 and 12 Hz. This frequency range is identical to the natural biological rhythms of the human brain. While atmospheric heating remains the official mission, the mechanical ability to blanket entire regions in frequencies that match human neural activity is a documented feature of the technology.
To understand how radio signals could theoretically manipulate human thoughts, we have to look at the atmosphere directly above us. When HAARP fires its high-frequency transmitters, it heats the ionosphere, transforming that specific layer of the sky into a massive, vibrating antenna known as an artificial ionosphere mirror. That makeshift mirror takes those signals and bounces them right back down to the surface as extremely low frequency, or ELF waves. These invisible ripples easily pass through solid objects, blanketing entire continents and penetrating into living rooms. This visualization shows that these ELF waves operate naturally in the 3 to 12 Hz range. Biologically, that perfectly matches the frequency of human brainwaves during sleep states, relaxation, and deep concentration. Because environmental signals and biological brainwaves operate on the exact same wavelength, the facility possesses the raw physics required to remotely interface with human cognition. The military has spent decades searching for a way to neutralize enemy forces without firing a single bullet. A psychological weapon that could disable an opposing army remotely is a primary strategic prize, and history shows that the intelligence apparatus is willing to cross heavy ethical lines to get it. In the 1950s and 60s, the CIA's MK-Ultra program actively experimented with covert mind control on unsuspecting citizens. If HAARP can blanket entire populations with specific ELF frequencies, those waves could theoretically be tuned to alter the emotional states of millions of people at once, inducing deep depression, sparking sudden panic, or total submissive apathy. These invisible radio waves effectively turn the sky into a sprawling psychological weapon, leaving civilians on the ground entirely vulnerable to unseen manipulation. While psychological manipulation remains invisible, the theories about HAARP's physical power are much louder and carry the potential for total devastation. This is the foundation of weather warfare, the idea that artificially heating the ionosphere can be used to forcefully manipulate atmospheric pressure. By creating a high-pressure zone in the upper atmosphere, HAARP could redirect the Earth's massive jet streams. Steering these weather fronts allows the military to weaponize the climate, engineering droughts to starve an adversary, or summoning localized hurricanes on command. Weaponizing the Earth's climate in this way allows the military to use the planet's own atmospheric systems as a precision tool against enemy nations. These theories go even deeper than the atmosphere, plunging straight into the Earth's crust. Because ELF waves can pass through solid matter, a concentrated beam could penetrate deep underground. Conspiracy researchers claim that directing these waves into unstable fault lines vibrates tectonic plates until they snap, triggering massive earthquakes. When an earthquake leveled Port-au-Prince in 2010, politicians and theorists around the globe immediately blamed the Alaskan array, arguing the disaster was engineered. Similar claims exploded after the 2023 quake that shattered regions of Turkey and Syria. Viral videos showing strange atmospheric lights during the tremors were widely circulated as proof of HAARP's ionospheric heating in action. Every time a major natural disaster strikes, these theories resurface. For a massive segment of the public, HAARP has become an active weapon of mass destruction operating in plain sight. By the mid-2010s, public concern reached a peak. Millions believed the United States possessed a god machine, fully capable of global domination. At the focal point of the public backlash was the Pentagon, facing intense and unrelenting scrutiny from citizens and international leaders. But then, the military did the one thing absolutely no one anticipated. They packed up their equipment, locked the gates, and walked away. The Defense Department officially divested from the project, transferring ownership and administrative control of the massive antenna array to civilian researchers. Ownership of the world's most controversial radio facility was transferred to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. This transition creates a logical paradox. It is difficult to reconcile why the world's most powerful military would willingly surrender a mechanism capable of mass psychological influence and planetary destruction. Perhaps the science finally debunked the theory, or the actual operation simply moved into the shadows, where it can no longer be seen.
Deep in the Alaskan wilderness, an isolated grid of metal towers became the internet's most infamous bogeyman. For decades, it was a classified military project, whispered about in the darkest corners of the web as a top-secret doomsday machine. The theories surrounding this facility claimed that the government was using it to steer deadly hurricanes into populated coastlines, trigger massive earthquakes on command, or broadcast mind control frequencies directly into the brains of citizens. These fears tapped into very real, visceral nightmares. A city leveled in seconds, families crushed under falling debris, entire communities washed away. The claims painted this facility as the architect behind our most devastating tragedies. Then, in 2015, the Pentagon simply packed up their equipment, unlocked the gates, and walked away. They handed the entire sprawling operation over to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. Overnight, the secretive military presence vanished. Today, you won't find armed guards or black helicopters. Instead, the facility is filled with civilian scientists, unarmed college students in winter gear, and public tour groups wandering freely through the antennas. If the government unlocked the front door and invited everyone inside to see exactly what they were doing, why does the legend of a weather-controlling superweapon still thrive? To figure out why that fear lingers, we have to put down the redacted naughty documents and look directly at the hard physical science of what this facility actually does to the sky above it. Putting the weather control myth to the test requires a basic lesson in atmospheric physics. We have to look at where Earth's weather actually lives. Here are our atmospheric layers. At the bottom is the troposphere, where all weather exists. HAARP targets the ionosphere, at the edge of space. Its radio waves pass straight through the lower atmosphere storm clouds untouched, only interacting upon reaching the ionosphere. The physics dictate a hard limit on what the facility can do. You physically cannot manipulate a hurricane if your radio signals don't even touch the moisture and air currents creating it. Even if HAARP physically cannot touch the weather, there is still the question of raw power. Could it vibrate tectonic plates and trigger massive earthquakes? This chart illustrates HAARP's maximum energy output, capping at 3.6 megawatts. While considerable for a human-built transmitter, on a planetary scale it barely registers. Compare that tiny output against a single natural lightning storm, which generates exponentially more energy in moments than HAARP ever could. The geological friction required to shift a tectonic plate and cause an earthquake operates on a scale millions of times greater than those radio waves. To geologists and physicists measuring planetary forces every day, the math speaks for itself. This array as a seismic weapon is simply physically impossible. If science completely rules out weather manipulation, and anyone can walk through the front gates today, the refusal to let go of this conspiracy theory points to a much deeper human problem. The public's paranoia doesn't come from nowhere. We know that governments have hidden the truth and run real, documented psychological operations in the past, like the classified MK-Ultra experiments. When powerful institutions break public trust, they create a psychological vacuum. Facts are rejected, suspicion becomes the default, and every shadow on the horizon is perceived as a monster. But the deepest root of this fear comes from the reality of the world we live in. We exist in a chaotic, unpredictable environment, where a shifting fault line or a sudden storm can erase a community without warning. The sheer randomness of natural destruction is terrifying to process. Surprisingly, wrapping that destruction in a grand conspiracy theory offers a strange kind of psychological comfort. Believing that an evil cabal is operating a weather machine is a coping mechanism, because if someone is in a control room pulling the strings, it means that at the very least, someone is in control of the chaos. The reality in Alaska is far quieter. HAARP is exactly what it claims to be, a quiet scientific instrument, a forest of metal antennas reaching out to map the edge of space. We have spent decades looking for a secret weapon in the sky, while our real vulnerability remains the ease with which fear overwrites physical facts. In a world of total randomness, we would rather invent a monster to be in charge of the storm than accept that no one is.